Welcome to Aligned Impact, the podcast where conscious leadership meets bold entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Summer Huntington, and each week we dive deep with founders, innovators, and thought leaders who are rewriting the rules of business from the inside out. Here we talk mindset, brand, content, culture, the real stuff behind building a legacy-driven business that doesn't burn you out. No filters, no fluff, just real conversations that inspire aligned action and intentional impact. If you're a visionary leader ready to create with purpose, grow with integrity, and lead with your heart, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
I think that really believing... So I've been speaking about dancing our dreams across the campus of our days, literally for like over 20 years. And that is like the power that we hold to have a thought, have an idea, have a vision, and then like speak it into being. You know, it starts within ourselves, and then it's like, okay, how do we express it? How do we weave it? How do we dance it into being? How do we call in the people to support this vision and coming into being? And
big warm welcome to Sofiah Thom of Danyasa Eco Resort in Costa Rica, and also founder of Temple Body Arts. Thank you so much for being here, Sofiah. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. So excited to be here with you, Summer.
So I'll tell a quick little backstory about Sofiah and how I came to meet her. I was really drawn, Sofiah, to your Instagram photography where you were wearing some beautiful costume, and like you had some very traditional garments, like you had a sword, you were really embodying the warrior, you had some fur, you had gold, and it just, your imagery was just so striking. And I remember being on a trip, and I just reached out to you out of the blue, and then so far since then I'm actually now booking a retreat at Danyasa Eco Resort. So just to paint a picture, if you're listening and you're not watching the visual of the video, Sofiah is an amazing warrior, embodied healing arts practitioner. So I'm just going to get right in with our first question. You grew up in a spiritual lineage and have practiced embodiment for decades. What was it that first called you to this path of feminine leadership?
Yeah, I mean, really just following my yes. So one of the things that I really teach is about us listening to our deepest yes that is our highest yes, aligned with our purpose. And it's actually through my spiritual lineage, which is called Subud, Susila Bodhidharma is the long name, that was founded in Indonesia, actually by a Muslim, but it's not a religion. It's really like a non-sect, beautiful spiritual organization that I feel really is rooted in Sufism, and it's ultimately about surrendering our will to the will of the divine and being guided. And so through my spiritual practice for over 30 years now, I've really cultivated a deep inner compass to knowing what is truly aligned with my gifts and my purpose here, and what is not, which is actually exactly what that sword represents. Because one of the teachings that continues to weave through and is such a deep teaching of Temple Body Arts, which is the sword of discernment. And so it's really helping women especially to find and cultivate and harness their sword of discernment, to know what is in alignment and what is not, and how to really come into their power to create boundaries and cut away that which doesn't serve, so that they can live their yes. And so to go back to your question around feminine leadership, it's really, just following my love of dance and expressive healing arts and tantra and yoga and all the things that I love, and then opening a retreat center with my husband, and ultimately going through a deep initiation that was a womb initiation, and just recognizing that my essence and my purpose is truly to bring this divine feminine energy to women and to be one of the pioneers of this rise of the divine feminine. And so, it's really been an unfolding over the last 2 decades. And where I am now.
And it's so beautiful to hear, just hear you articulate it. And I actually have a little experience of being in some of your virtual containers, which are very unique. They usually start off with some dancing and some embodiment practice, and the production level is so high. It's been really inspiring for me just to kind of ramp up my production. But I'm curious, can you tell us a little bit about, I know you're recently coming back from a sabbatical, and you just came back, and I got into one of your containers. It was like I forget the name of it. It was like a womb activation. It was like a 7 week. What was the?
Oh, yes, She Rises.
She Rises.
Yes.
So I got into that container, and there was a long master class that you did, and I just felt this like palpable energy of, whoa, she's like coming back. She did her sabbatical. So tell us a little bit about the sabbatical and how it, firstly, give us the backstory, and then how it's been since you've come back.
Yeah, it's a wild ride. Life and following the call. I mean, really, so I had been holding space for really almost a decade. I birthed Temple Body Art School for Divine Feminine Leadership back in 2017. And just to go back to the backstory of that, really how I finally like birthed my full school into the world and lived my full yes was actually going through a deep rite of passage through my own womb initiation and almost losing my life from a miscarriage. And that was 8 years ago now. And it was really through that experience that I was able to deepen into my own practices and truly heal and transmute the grief into like really turning it into birthing, birthing the school and really saying yes to my mission as a spiritual midwife to really support other women in birthing themselves and their work into the world and birthing a new paradigm, which I really believe that we are all, in that together collectively. And so after 7 years of holding space nonstop and going deep into womb wisdom and teaching around how we have these different lunar archetypes, so these different archetypes that we move through as women that bring about these different gifts and also shadows and like how to work with them. And one of them is the sacred dreamer, which is that time of bleeding, of that time of bleeding, of the new moon, of going within. And what sparked my sabbatical is actually I started bleeding and I didn't stop for like 3 weeks straight. And I went to go to the doctor and it was like, she's like, we need to operate on you. You have a huge polyp. You have a cyst. And so I went into surgery and luckily they didn't have to cut me open with the technology these days. I'm so grateful. But really through that initiation and healing, it was like, it just brought me deeper into my womb and again, and when I really got quiet, like I was about to go on tour, literally, I was about to go on tour, I was about to go back into like a whole launch and just so much output energy and really my womb was just like screaming like, no, like you have to stop, you have to actually like pause, like the sacred dreamer is like pausing to stop and to listen and to reflect of like what really wants to come through, what's really in alignment with our divine purpose. And so I listened and I responded and I canceled everything. And at first it was like, okay, I'll just cancel my tour and I like stopped for a week, but then it was like, oh no, you actually have to cancel everything and you need to go on sabbatical for a year. And it was one of the scariest things I've ever done. I was literally like, I actually still led a huge online virtual event because I had like 500 women already signed up at that time. And then by the time I led it, I had over 1,000 women signed up for this. I'm like, what? And here I am. I'm like, okay, bye. I'm going on sabbatical for a year. But like that level of trust is such a deep teaching that I have to continue to come back to, which I'm so in right now as I'm finally, so I took 2 years. I did one retreat in that time, but like really I haven't held space until this one course that you were just part of, She Rises. It was like my coming back online and gathering the women again and bringing the teachings through and really what I've learned, I realized that I was going into perimenopause. I'm going to be 49 this month and it's just so wild. to get my hands on all these books and just really understand what this time, this life cycle time really means. And like this ultimately is, well, it's the ultimate rite of passage for women, and it's so misunderstood. And we can get into all of like the symptoms of it, or we can actually like come into the power of the moment and be able to see like, oh, okay, yeah, actually these things no longer are aligned with who I am, and I need to let them go. And if I don't, then I'm going to feel so much more stressed. I'm going to feel these things. And it's like this time of like needing to shed and truly listen to how we're being guided to step forward, and serve ultimately as leaders. And so what I received was like, wow, this body of work, Temple Body Arts, that I have been cultivating, which is really about like Temple Body Arts is the spiritual, the sexual, and the creative channel. And so it's learning like how to bridge the gap between these different channels, and truly come into our fullest magnetism and expression and voice and power, through all of these, and to become the artist of our lives, and to recognize that our artistry is our ministry. And so all of these gems, I'm like, I have to share this with the world. Like, I can't just sit on this body of work. And yeah, so I'm coming back out, and I'm not just coming out to share it, but I'm actually getting ready to train my first facilitators, to be able to really share this with the world, because it's so needed. So yeah, that's where I am.
I was literally in tears. I didn't tell you this, but I was like, the story that you shared with like your process of like starting the eco resort and living there, and then just like shedding all these different layers to get to where you're at now. And I think there was a point where you talked about menopause, perimenopause, premenopause being like a portal into the next, version of yourself, which is beautiful. But it was so powerful just to see you in your element and facilitating, and the community that you've cultivated over these years.
Thank you.
So thank you for your work, and it's so nice to have you back. I didn't know until we had met right when you were coming out of sabbatical, and I didn't realize to what extent that meant until I got into the She Rises course. I'm curious, how did dance therapy, tantra, and temple dance weave together into Temple Body Arts, and what makes the practice unique?
Yeah, well, dance therapy. Yeah, so I studied dance therapy 25 years ago, and expressive healing arts and yoga. So kind of weaving them all together. So the dance therapy aspect truly, so when I guide dance, it's these shamanic dance journeys. I mean, you've experienced on these calls as well, it's just like guiding people into these different ways. Like, what I see dance therapy to be is like creating new pathways of moving, so that we can actually create new pathways of moving in our life. So it's like, if we can feel that in the dance, if we can pull out our sword and we can cut away those things that no longer serve, then we can actually start to like create that boundary and that strength and support and anchor into ourselves, so that we can move through life in that way as well. And so yeah, dance therapy and expressive healing arts. And what else did you say? Tantra yoga.
Yeah, tantra.
Yeah, so tantra is very much, I am a tantrika through and through, and that is truly what it means to me. I mean, I've studied, I've trained in many different trainings, but ultimately I'm self-initiated into the remembrance that this is my temple, this is my instrument of the divine, and that we are all expressions of the one infinite consciousness. And the masculine and feminine aspect of Shiva and Shakti is a huge aspect of my work. I actually have this gorgeous image of the masculine and feminine essence here, and it's so much of what I bring through. And I feel like, being in my marriage for 19 years now also, and I have parents that also teach human development movement. So I'm actually second generation facilitator in like spiritual human development work as well. So I grew up in that, and they're still together after 50 years. still teaching and living and co-creating. So I bring in this very unique life experience of like Shiva, Shakti, masculine, feminine. I like to call it a sacred marriage, which is definitely through that tantric lens of recognizing that, life is our canvas, is Shiva, is the masculine. And then as Shakti, as the feminine, we are literally bringing the unmanifest into form. But we must have the canvas in which to bring that to form. And so it's like this beautiful dance of the masculine and feminine that is always working within us and around us. And I think, you got to experience it too. As feminine leaders, it is essential, and it's a big piece that I teach is like how we must have that structure of the masculine, the riverbanks of the masculine, so that the Shakti, the river, can flow through in everything that we're creating. And I think that, this is something that I've really had to cultivate as a feminine leader, as somebody that's lived in Costa Rica now for 18 years and had to use sacred technology as a way of, broadcasting and sharing and gathering people. And so, yeah, this piece of the Tantra, I would say, and also like embodying different goddess archetypes and frequencies can truly support us as well in navigating through this wild life that we live in. And so Temple Body Arts really is this like multi-dimensional experience of truly embodying, like coming into touch with like who you truly are, like your signature soul essence. And then, learning how to move in new ways and like literally rewriting old stories and beliefs and old paradigms into like, how are you being a sovereign creator of your life now? And so I really weave all of this together. And so what makes it so unique is that it's very much like embodiment, dance, healing arts, also like the ritual performance and artistry is a huge piece, and like this artist piece, even in my upcoming leadership immersion that we have, like we literally create a ritual performance at the end that we are witnessed in. So it's like, it's not for performance sake, it's to be witnessed. So it's as a ritual, and it's like, it's just like no other. I mean, just full chills even thinking about the uniqueness that each woman creates, of like what she's letting go of and how she's really stepping into who she came here to be, and being witnessed in that is just so deeply powerful. And so it's been a really fun marriage, of like weaving all these pieces together to create this unique expression.
You're definitely speaking my language when you talk about just all of this stuff resonates so much with me. And I too have kind of stepped into artistry kind of by accident and facilitating my students to also become movement artists. And the ritual piece is so key, just giving, having a ritual performance. If those of you guys that are not familiar with what that looks like, it's like, there's a lot of intention behind it. I don't know how yours, you could probably explain yours a little bit, but for me, I come from the practice of like Butoh, and there's a lot of somatics integrated in the Butoh practice, where the person that's going and doing the performance is actually having a somatic experience themselves, where they're actually doing the healing work in front of the audience and being witnessed. So I imagine kind of a similar vibe.
Oh yeah, I have full chills right now. Yeah, in fact, my blood sister actually just shared that she's going through a big grieving, and she's like, I'm going to go to this Butoh workshop. And I was like, oh, how interesting. Like, that's like dance therapy. It's like, we have to be able to move these emotions and things that we like keep stuck in the body. We have to move them through in order to create the space for like what we're here to birth next. Otherwise, we can get stagnant and get stuck, when we don't fully allow ourselves to be expressed in that way. So I love that. And the power of being witnessed. I mean, we all desire to be seen, even if we're afraid of being seen. It's like, as a child, like, hey, look at me, mom, look at me, and it's like, there's something so deeply healing about creating that beautiful space to really be seen in that way.
And this is happening at an upcoming retreat that I believe we're going to release this before the retreat. Can you tell us a little bit about the immersion? I know it's limited to 20 spots. Tell us a bit about what's happening at that retreat.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's very unique. Yeah, this one is actually very special because usually this is just really part of my full like leadership path and facilitator path. So it's mostly like alumni and women that are in the training. But right now, because I'm coming out of sabbatical, this is actually open to those that feel a call to this work. And there's just a few spots remaining. And it's a deep rite of passage into this lineage, into this work. So the whole week is like one long ceremony and ritual, but with a lot of fun and play and lightness and like rewilding on the beach, in the jungle, in the waterfalls, and dancing our dreams across the canvas of our days, doing deep womb work, working with other sisters. And really, going into our shadows and transmuting them and doing fire ritual. And so it's a deep, like shedding of old skins and really this rebirth energy, which I'm also in. So it's like we're all kind of in it together in this really beautiful, potent space. And you'll feel Danyasa is so much like a womb space and has held so much deep transformation. And so you get to be held in the sanctuary, but then also just a few steps away, 2 minutes from the beach. And so, it's a 7-night deep rite of passage initiation journey into this, and really calling in leaders. And I think too, as leaders, we need to be held. There's, I know I do. It's like when we're constantly holding space for others. So it's a really powerful, potent space to come in and be held and witnessed and get to like know yourself more deeply and feel like what is not in alignment anymore and what is being asked of you to become through. And so there's life before initiation, there's life after. And it's powerful. Mm.
And real quick for our listeners, because I know a lot of people are going to be curious, what's the name of the event and where can we find it?
Yeah, so it's the Temple Body Arts Leadership Immersion, and you can find it on my Linktree or on my website. So it's just under there. It says Costa Rica on my website, templebodyarts.com. And you can find all the info. There's a beautiful video there to really get a taste of the magic. And it's happening over the equinox, so it's September 20 through 27th.
Amazing. There's this image, and a lot of her images are just so beautiful, but there's an image of about 20 women standing arm to arm, and Sofiah is in the middle, and they're all doing this, imagine like your hands making a triangle with the pointer fingers down and the thumbs touching, and then placing the thumbs over the womb, which is like a symbol for just kind of channeling that energy into sacral chakra, I believe.
Yes.
And it's just powerful because everyone looks so embodied. Everyone's wearing these beautiful red dresses, which I imagine the red is the symbol for the menstrual blood. I don't know.
The divine feminine, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but when I saw that photo, I've been doing that symbol for years, not really knowing like why I was doing it. I started getting into like yoni steaming a few years back, just because I knew I wanted to have a second baby. So I took a certification in yoni steaming, and a lot of my performances would end with that symbol there. And so to see your whole like crew of women just like doing it together was like, whoa, okay, this is.
Oh yeah, we do a lot of mudra mantra, activations, and you also just receive so many different codes and practices that you can be weaving in to your own life and what you're already weaving and sharing as well. So
Sounds like it's going to be amazing. I do want to go into a bit about the women that you're working with. So I'm curious, what do you feel like women are most longing for today, and how does Temple Arts meet that longing?
Well, I feel that, women are really wanting to feel strong, confident, trust themselves, magnetic, connected to their essence, free. There's just like this desire, to want to be free in themselves and confident in who they are and what they're here to share. And, you know, the women that are, yeah, called to this work, to Temple Body Arts, I feel are also really wanting that depth of like the spiritual depth, to know that there's more. It helps, I know it helps me and it helps everyone to be able to like move through these unprecedented, wild times of what's happening in the world. When we can come into that deep level of trust in the mystery and trust in ourselves and leaning into our purpose, you know, what we're here to really bring through. Because yeah, I mean, I speak about it a lot too. It's like, it can be very confusing of like, how can I make a difference? What can I do when there's so much chaos and pain and war happening in the world? And I really believe that it's through leaning into our purpose and what lights us up and how we can like truly come alive. And even if we're just, you know, we need to come from that deep place of connection to ourselves, to that place of love, to filling ourselves up so that we can then share with our communities, with our people, and, you know, share our voices and do our part. Even if that feels small, it all ripples out. And so, yeah, I feel like deep purpose is something that all women are looking for. And that's definitely something that this work gives women, is like, oh yes, this, I remember, like, this is who I am. This is why I'm here.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that you're not missing anything. Like, anyone that's listening, you're just remembering who you really are. You're remembering that most authentic, highest self as you go through these initiations and surrounding yourself by embodied leaders.
Yes.
So you actually created Envision Festival. She's the founder of Envision Festival, which still runs today in Dominical. Also Danyasa, the eco resort in Dominical, and you really started a movement in that small town in Costa Rica. And now an estate that you're working on as well. What role does visioning play in your leadership related to maybe these projects?
Everything. Yeah, definitely. You know, I think that really believing. So I've been speaking about dancing our dreams across the campus of our days, literally for like over 20 years. And that is like the power that we hold to have a thought, have an idea, have a vision, and then like speak it into being. You know, it starts within ourselves, and then it's like, okay, how do we express it? How do we weave it? How do we dance it into being? How do we call in the people to support this vision and coming into being? And so I was actually presenting at Bali Spirit Festival in 2009, and it was so epic. And I remember flying home from there just like, oh my gosh, I want to create something like this in Costa Rica. And I had recently proposed to my husband. And so our wedding actually became this epic 3-day festival wedding, just legendary, 2010. And that's what sparked Envision Festival. And so I think, you know, having the vision, creating something that then like rippled out. So one of our friends came to our wedding and was like, do you guys want to start a festival? We're like, well, you have to come to Burning Man and Lightning in a Bottle and understand, you know, our vision, our like kind of culture that we've been in, what we'd want to create. And so, yeah, we birthed it. And it's definitely, you know, it birthed at Danyasa on our land before we had built out Danyasa, and then it quickly quadrupled in size. And so it's actually in Uvita now, and it is happening this year. I no longer produce. It definitely went in a different direction, and it's been, you know, I think as a visionary, as a mother, you know, even though I don't have children, I'm definitely a mother. My students call me Mother of Dragons, actually. But to be a mother and create and vision things, it's like we have to also be willing to let go, and that's been intense, but part of the journey, I think, as being a visionary and being a fire starter. Even with Danyasa, you know, it's like, okay, we birthed it, we created it, And then I was called to create Temple Body Arts. And it's like needing to let go a little bit more and like bring in more of a team and like, bring in that support. And now with this land project that, yeah, it's actually been very interesting. And some visions, some dreams take a long time to come into being, and they have their own divine timing, their own gestation. This one has taken a long time. And yeah, we're living on this land and we're slowly building, but really we're calling in the aligned epic humans to co-create this with, because it's not just for us. Like, I can hold the vision and I do like the spiritual work with it. And then my husband is the literal like builder, like epic builder. And so together, we can hold a lot, but then there's also like we got a vision and call in more of the resources and support to create, what it wants to be. And sometimes I feel like as a visionary, we can only hold a piece of it, and we need to bring in those other key partners and players to bring a full vision into being. And that takes a lot of patience. So say as a visionary, you have to be very patient. You have to be willing to let go. Yeah. So, but it's definitely, I mean, sometimes I'll say that it's kind of like a curse being a visionary, because you're like always thinking about the next thing. Also, like you create something and you're like, okay, what's next? And so it's, it can be challenging.
Yeah, and that's where having a little downtime and having that, your practices. But it's a gift. It truly is a gift to be able to be somebody that holds a vision for something that does not yet exist. It's like we hold it in our imagination until it exists, no matter how long it takes to exist on the physical plane. I think that's a big piece of, at least what I found in visionary work, is seeing that vision and holding the path and trying many different things and many different teams and iterations until it does exist.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's been that too with even the facilitator path, like holding, I literally received that 5 years ago, and then I'm like holding that vision, and now it's like, okay, now I'm ready, now it's time. And also as a visionary, you can be ahead of your time. And so I've definitely had that experience too, where it's like, okay, I put this thing out, and it's like, no, people are not ready for that yet. And so you have to kind of wait for that perfect alignment in order for like everyone to catch up with the vision as well.
I
Yeah.
share that sentiment for sure with the
Oh
whole
yeah.
steel mace vinyasa. Nobody cared about it 10 years ago, and now all of a sudden, finally, the yogis are like, "What is this?"
Yes.
I wanted to mention I came to Envision, and it was kind of like being in a vortex too. This was probably it was probably like 7 years ago or so. But there's some energy in that Ubita like area. And the whole festival at that time too, it just drew a lot of healing arts practitioners, yoga practitioners, and I just went around going from workshop to workshop and learning. And it was really refreshing to be at a festival that not only was just about music, but it was about connections and meeting people and learning and taking the wisdom with you throughout the journey. So thank
Yeah.
you for creating that.
Yes, definitely.
So, just a couple more questions for you before we close. What do you feel feminine leaders are being called to during this global movement?
Yeah, right now I feel like we are being called as feminine leaders to really, we're the ones to birth a new paradigm. The Dalai Lama said we're going to be saved by the Western woman, and I do believe that. It's, yeah, in this rise of the divine feminine, it's like, I like to call this like sacred feminism, which is from one of my teachers, the late Sally Kempton, who really spoke about feminism as this like through the tantric lens again. So rather than, the feminist movement that came out in the 60s that kind of like pushed down the masculine and the patriarchy, and like it's a very different energy than embracing and welcoming. And like also I feel like as women, feminine leaders, we are here to guide the men and to find their role as the pillars, as the protectors, as that pure consciousness to like hold space for the new earth to be birthed. And so it's about honoring the masculine again and the feminine, and really stepping forward to bring through this love and grace and compassion and humility, sustainability, regeneration, like really these beautiful values that I feel we need to bring forth to heal our mother earth, and come into right relationship with the earth and the environment and our bodies and our blood, and to come into right relationship with the masculine and the feminine. And like we need to come into that within ourselves so that we can then lead this new way. So I feel that there is that calling, and that's what we need. And let's see how it can come into being.
The first word or the first sentence you said was like we're creating this new paradigm, and I feel that so much with so many of the women that I'm just watching start global companies, global movements. They're doing business differently. They're integrating feminine sales and letting go of like patriarchal styles of selling. They're teaching one to many. They're like, we're all mothers. A lot of us are mothers. Half of us, who knows what the stats are, but some of us are mothers of actual children. Some of us are mothers of different bodies of work. But I'm seeing this total new paradigm of how we exist in the world of business and money and wealth too, which is really wild to watch.
Yes. And I stand for us as women to really come into our own divine inheritance, to know like our own value, and be able to come into right relationship with money, and wealth. And it's only been in the last 100 years or so that we've even been able to own land, or have a deed, have a bank. And so it's so fresh that we're still like rewriting like a lot of these old stories of not having that freedom and not having our own money. And so that's something I truly stand for, and really want to support feminine leaders, and creating wealth as well, and knowing their own value.
Mm-hmm. I find with a lot of my students, there's so much deep conditioning from our ancestors in the hundreds of years prior to the last 100 years, where we could actually start a business and get credit or own land. But it does take a lot of reprogramming and rewriting new stories for these women, and it sounds like you're doing very similar work. Also, I just want to thank you too. Sofiah is hosting us out at her Danyasa Eco Resort, and we're going to be out there at New Year's, and the retreat is all but sold out. I think we have like one spot left, but that's a testament to the facility that you've created. People just are drawn to it, and they want to come there and do the work. So big thank you to you for putting us on your New Year's calendar.
Yes, my pleasure. I cannot wait to dance with you guys.
Yeah, and I'm excited for you to pop into some of the warrior stuff. So my last question, for women listening who feel the pull of who they're becoming, what's the first step to embodying their sacred yes?
That's a great question. The first step to embodying your yes, is truly connecting in with your womb, and coming into right relationship with your own sexual sovereignty, like really reclaiming your sexual sovereignty as your yes, because it's truly how we create, what we create, and how we design our lives comes from our sexuality, from that creative life force. And so the more that you can connect in with your womb and with your cycle and your body, and even if you're not bleeding anymore, but like to connect in with the moon and the earth and your body and your breath, and these deep practices to really feel how does a yes feel in your body, and to this is how you train your inner compass to know when something is truly aligned and feels that full body yes, and when it's not. And so the more that you can come into that full yes, the sexual sovereignty piece is there, because I think as women too, we've given our power away so many times to situations around our sexuality that maybe has not been fully empowered. So the more that we can come into that full empowerment within ourselves and know our yes and know our no, and really move through life from that space and using our sexual creative power, not just for sexuality, but for like actually following what turns us on in life. That's when we can really, create a full life of yes and alignment.
Yeah, I've been exploring that with just doing things that lead me to more pleasure, and it's not always sexual pleasure. It's just like, what do I want to really do right now? It's like, do I want to eat a nourishing meal? Do I want to go on a walk? Do I want to just look out at the lake? It's like leading your life from a place of what brings you pleasure versus the opposite, which is like having to do the to-do list or whatever.
Yeah. No, feeling that, it's like following our yes, following our pleasure, following, what feels good in your body and creates that spaciousness, because also like in every moment we are sending out an energetic broadcast of like the frequency that we're holding. And so the more that you can give to yourself, you come from that overflowing cup and that magnetism, and we need to feel that pleasure, and then we can actually open to receive more of all the things that we want to say yes to.
Absolutely. Sophia, where can we find you on the channels, like Instagram? Do you have a YouTube? Where can our folks find you outside of the website?
Yes, all the things. I do have an amazing YouTube channel, Sofiah Thom channel, and I have so many different practices on there, so you can definitely go and divulge in there, and like, it's incredible. So dive in there, and then I'm pretty active on my Instagram channel, which is Sofiah Thom as well. Everything is just my name, and then the website is templebodyarts.com, so you can go and explore there for the different offerings. And if you are interested in connecting and knowing more on this path, you can always just DM me on Instagram. We can connect.
Thank you so much, Sophia, for being on Aligned Impact podcast. It's such a pleasure to dive into your work today.
Thank you, Summer. So good. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Aligned Impact. I'm truly grateful to have you here in this growing community of leaders, innovators, and conscious change makers. Check the show notes for all the links and resources we mentioned today, and you can explore more of my work and programs over at FlowShala.com, or connect with me on social media at Summer Huntington and YouTube as well for behind the scenes movement inspiration and business tips. Stay tuned for more episodes of Aligned Impact that inspire you to lead with intention, get empowered, and create aligned impact in your life and your community.